Enterprise Medical Log, Stardate 5027.3, Dr. Leonard McCoy recording. I'm concerned about Captain Kirk. He shows indications of increasing tension and emotional stress. I can find no reason for the captain's behavior, except possibly that we've been on patrol too long without relief and diversion. He has resisted all of my attempts to run a psychological profile on him. Welcome, friends, to the final episode of our special series of Romulan stories, or looking at Romulan stories here on Hit or Miss Star Trek. I am your usual host, Captain Mike, and joining me on this mission to steal a cloaking device, once again, from just a couple of weeks ago, is my good friend, Steve Brown. Hello, Steve.
Hello. I never actually left. I was just sitting there in the corner, stealthed up.
You cloaked yourself and hid. Very appropriate. And we're also joined by another returning guest from literally just last week from our In the Pale Moonlight review. And she's been here a few other times. I think you joined our Redemption review and stuff. Welcome back, Adrienne.
Hello, friends. Yay.
Hello. And again, we're joined by a third guest who you will have heard once on the podcast, a bit of a Trek newbie, but we're going to get him on the podcast whilst we can. And he's been on our Silver Screen podcast a few times, if you listen to that sister podcast over there. Welcome back, Tobi.
Hi, welcome back again.
Welcome. We're definitely not recording this for the second time because I forgot to press record. No, viewers. No. This is all fresh. So yeah, I'm well aware that everyone's here and everyone's fine. So I'll move us along because we've done this once already. And
just say Mike doing his Wesley Crusher imitation.
Space, time, and thought. Anyway. We're wrapping things up. This is the last Romulan episode, certainly in this series. We might go back to them eventually, but for a while it won't be happening. And we're wrapping up by circling back to where we started with another classic episode of the original series. We began with Balance of Terror, so we're concluding here with the Enterprise incident. We've got a lot to discuss in our review of the episode, but first we're going to dive into the usual fun sections. We are going to skip the intro this time, the healing frequencies open, because I basically know everyone here's kind of favorite things, and we've talked about what everyone's been doing. And in terms of viewing, there's either new spoilery stuff or we've already been through it recently. So we'll give that a miss and hopefully get more into the nitty gritty of the episodes. So skipping that brings us to the section that gives the podcast its name. It's the legendary Hit or Miss section.
What about my performance?
I'm not a drama critic.
I was going to talk about the fact I still don't watch Prodigy, but
you still haven't watched it.
One day.
Steve, I will say the second season disappointed me, to be honest.
Imagine that.
I know. I sang the praises of season 1 so much, and it really is just that good. And then season 2 happened, and it happened.
I love season 2. It's so great. Anybody could watch it and just love it.
Really?
I think any Trek fan, that is, any Trek fan.
I was going to say, it really was Trek inside baseball. I don't think
Trek
anybody
fan,
could.
Yeah. If you've ever watched Next Generation, you're fine.
Yeah, but the first season was very much like it was a good on-ramp for younger viewers and stuff. The second season, it just feels like anybody would be lost watching this.
I love it.
Nah, they broke their own rules too much. But anyway. That's such a weird nitpick. But anyway, so if you are new to us, or you just need a reminder, the Hit or Miss section is where I basically pick random things from anywhere in the Star Trek universe. I have 4 this week. I put them up on screen if you're watching on YouTube, or for our contributors here, and ask if they're a hit or a miss, debate back and forth if there's any kind of disagreement, and try and come to some kind of consensus. And yeah, some of them will be Romulan themed to fit with the theme of the episodes, but not all, because we don't want to overload it all with the same thing. And yes, I'm aware, Tobi, you've only really seen 2 episodes, so most of them I've tried to make accessible to you, but there is one that you'll probably just have to sit out that I'll come to at the end. So the first thing on the Hit or Miss section, surprising nobody, will be a ship. It's a Romulan ship, and of course it's from this episode. So hit or miss for the Romulan D7 battle cruiser Steve, for the very first time, you've definitely not shared your opinions on this already. What did you think of this ship?
Looks like a Klingon ship.
What?
Hey.
Wow! No way! Is that what they meant in the episode?
Yeah, I wonder if they, just didn't have enough models or something for it. They went, oh,
Now,
well,
I
just
know
add
you
this
know
in.
the story, Stephen. 'Cause...
Do I? Oh,
Oh, yeah, remember
Why
I told
don't you
you like
remind
10
me?
minutes ago? Yeah. Shall I share it again, or do you want to share it with the
Yes.
viewers? Well, the reason that they're using Klingon ships is because in the original series, they had very few models and things, and there was a Romulan ship from back in season 1, the Romulan Bird of Prey. But unfortunately, somebody in the behind the scenes stepped on and broke the Bird of Prey model, so it wasn't available when it came to filming the Enterprise incident. And they had already filmed the episode Elan of Troyes, which actually airs later in the season, which was going to be the first appearance of the Klingon D7 cruiser. So it was made to be a Klingon ship because we were finally going to see one on screen, and then because the Romulan ship was destroyed, they were like, just use the Klingon one, we'll chuck in a line about it. But yeah, I always find it weird that considering we know it more as a Klingon ship, it was actually the first time it appeared for people was as a Romulan vessel. Yeah, and I'm sure you'll probably know if you know your Trek that that when it started out, when it first appeared, it was very much just the exact Klingon model, but they've since gone back and added little flourishes. So in the remastered version of the episode, they've added the little painted Romulan bird that you get on the Bird of Prey to the bottom of the D7 to make it look a little different. And they've chucked a Bird of Prey in there made of CGI rather than broken model in the remastered version as one of the 3 ships. I will say also in the animated series, they added a few Romulan markings to differentiate it a bit as well, because they could have animated anything, really. I guess they could have used the Bird of Prey, but they decided to stick with this continuity and go with what this was. So anyway, back to you, Steve, now that I've bored everyone senseless. What did you think of the Romulan D7?
Yeah, hit. Obviously, I'm more hit because it's more like the Klingon ship, the classic neck and things. But yeah, when you see the extra sort of details they put on and Romulized it, yeah, it's good.
Cool. The ones on screen, like I say, are all from different parts of the episode or comparisons. The top left is just a fan-made thing where they've really made it look Romulan by adding all the Bird of Prey features. But I kind of wish that had appeared in the episode, because some might say it's overkill. I really like it. Yeah, if you're not watching on YouTube, unlucky, I can't really describe it other than to say it's going on D7, but it's got all the Romulan markings, the feathers on the top and the bird and everything. So, yeah. Cool. Do you know, by the way, which version of it everyone watched? Was it the remastered version or the original version?
Remastered for me.
Remastered.
Whatever
That's all
is on
they have.
Netflix.
Yeah, that's all it's on Netflix. So that's what I watched.
Is it the remastered on Netflix? I never know this, you see, because other people have come on and said, I just watched what was on Netflix, and I can't remember if it's if they have the remastered ones on.
Yeah, they're there. They are for sure.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
That's cool then. Fair enough then. That's good. That's going to bode well for later. So, Adrienne, what about you? What did you make of the Romulan D7?
Yeah, I love almost every Star Trek ship, but 100% I agree with that. The word Romulized is going to be my new favorite word for the day. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, the last time Tobi was on, our other guest coined the term Romulate, which she
Oh,
said...
Romulate. That's great. That's a good
She
one,
said
too.
that, yeah, the Romulans deserve their own verb for just like sneaky machinations.
Yes.
She coined the word Romulate.
Oh, well, she's a genius. Love her.
I'm sure you remember, Tobi.
Yeah.
Bless her. And over to you then, Tobi. What do you think of this? Because you will have seen it in the episode, obviously.
Yeah, as already said, I love the top left on the picture. I love the bottom painting. That's really cool. I'm unsure about whether I like the small one better than the big one, because they both have their own features that I like. The small one is, I feel, more... It's a better design, I feel like. And the big one is just... It sticks out more. It feels more iconic.
I like both. I always liked the Romulan Bird of Prey, even though I know some people really didn't when I was reviewing it on a different hit on this section. But yeah, I think the Romulan Bird of Prey really strikes me as more of a kind of quick stealth fighter craft type thing, whereas the battlecruiser is, as it sounds, it's a big, hefty battlecruiser thing. So yeah, well, fair enough. Anything else anyone wants to say about that, or should we move on now?
No, good.
Cool. Well, that's all hits then for that one. As we catch up to where we were before, I realize we weren't recording. I'm going to share the second thing. It's going to be such a surprise to everybody what this second thing might be, but it's a character, believe it or not. from various things, but starting
could
from
it
the
be?
original series. So hit or miss for the character of Scotty, good old Montgomery Scott, the miracle worker engineer. Adrienne, coming to you first this time. What do you think of our Scotty? Oh, she's busy. I can always come to somebody else. Okay. Steve, no, Adrienne, you there? Steve, I'll come to you first. What do you think of Scotty anyway?
For me, I mean, hit in general, but for me, Scotty is always going to be the original series Scotty.
Right.
You know, Simon Pegg did a good job, and the other guy on the right, who I don't even know the name of, obviously made an impact.
I can't remember the actor's name either, but I feel bad because I can't. He did a really good job in the one episode he was in of Strange New Worlds. But
yeah, that's it. That's also must be the only place he's been. But no,
it is.
Yeah, it's Scotty. For me, it's always going to be the original Scotty, though. Just getting those things done, multiplying everything by 3. And,
4.
3, 4. And yeah, whereas Simon Pegg did a good job, but he was a different sort of character for me.
Fair enough. The actor who plays him in Strange New Worlds is Martin Quinn. I just looked it up because I felt bad for not knowing, and partly because I found this out the other day, and that's part of the reason I chose this particular picture because somebody's written it on there. It's amazing to me that Martin Quinn is the first actual Scottish person to play Scotty, which is mind-blowing because James Doohan's Canadian and Simon Pegg's obviously English. So he is literally the first actual Scotsman, which is just like, what? Anyway, but yeah, I think Doohan's the iconic version and probably the only one that Tobi's seen. So Tobi, what do you think of, since you've probably only seen him, original Scotty from the original series?
I mean, can I give another category between hit and miss and call it not enough information?
Yeah,
Sure. Absolutely.
Because I feel like it's one of the things in this episode. I feel like he has more of a special role, so I feel like I can hardly judge him on this appearance, because to really appreciate the special, you need to know the normal.
Yeah, well, I just say that part of the reason I picked him is because I think this episode actually, it has him in all of the different roles that he does across the show, but in one episode. Because
I mean, what do you think of him in this episode? You know, what do you think of him in this episode?
I think he's good, but I think I have just a lot of other things in this episode that I gravitate more towards. So
yeah,
it gets kind of lost in the mix a little bit.
I see what you mean, but yeah, it was just really to emphasize that, like, he's always the second officer, so he's often in command because, you know, Kirk and Spock are always doing off to who knows what they get up to together, and and he's usually left there. But he's also the chief engineer and the miracle worker, and I mean, he was the one that got the bloody Romulan cloak working at the end of the day, wasn't he? So if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have done it. And but no, fair enough. I mean, if you say not enough info somewhere in the middle, I'll definitely take that as neutral, shall we say. And Adrienne, what about you? You must know all of the information about all of our Scotties.
I do know all the different Scotties and all their different nationalities. I love Scotty. He's one of my favorite characters, always has been. I was even worried about him when I first saw Wolf in the Fold. I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen to this guy? But I was a little kid. But I love him, always will. Basically, apparently, always have. And he has one of the best lines in this show. So, hey, let's go. And he saves the day, as always.
Of course, he always does. It's always last minute. And as Steve says, he's always a miracle worker by exaggerating how long things are going to take.
Right.
I love that. That's in his Next Gen appearance, he mentions that to LaForge. But the one that I remember, because I just saw it at the cinema, is in Star Trek 3. It's like, how long will it take to get the Enterprise? Oh, it'll take like 8 hours, but you don't have 8, so I'll do it in 2. Do you always multiply by 4? Yeah, how can I keep my reputation as a miracle worker? It's funny. A random fact about the actor, by the way, which I didn't realize until very recently. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but he's actually missing a finger on one of his hands. And it's because James Doohan apparently got it blown off in the war, which I had no idea about. I've never noticed this in all of my watch-throughs of the episodes. Apparently it's there. You can see it. Like, well, thanks for your service, I guess. Yeah, mad. But I should say, I didn't say for the last one, but obviously the Romulan D7 Stormbird battlecruiser is a hit with me, particularly on the remastered versions where they've done something to make it look a bit more Romulized, was the word. And obviously I love Scotty. I think I love him in all the forms, but like you can't beat the original James Doohan, even though he's not Scottish, in the role of Scotty. So yeah, all hits all the time, it seems. So there we go. We're going to move on to the third thing out of the 4 then, which will actually be a surprise to us as we catch up. So let's see. I can't remember what I've picked now because it's been that long. The third thing for today is going to be... Oh, actually, I'll leave the fourth, that thing till fourth. I'll tell you what, I'll jump in here. Tobi, you won't be able to contribute to this one, but I'm going to throw it up and ask the other two anyway, sorry. So this is a Romulan-based episode. I did a full review on it that you can catch with Don Martin on the podcast channel, so it's not really to give my views, but I'm interested to hear other people's. So hit or miss for the Voyager episode, Message in a Bottle. And Steve, I'm coming to you first for this one.
Yeah, great episode. Loved it. Doctor. It was actually, where was it in the season? What season was it?
Mid-season 4.
Yeah, so it was before the Doctor started getting a lot of episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
This was literally, I think they say it's his first... No, it's not his first 18, but it's one of the few that he's been on at that point.
That's it. Yeah, no, great episode. Obviously, you get the Prometheus flying around.
Woo.
And then all the Romulan stuff, and then you get to see some other Federation ships, and yeah, and they obviously get contact with the Federation as well. So lots of hits.
Part of the reason I picked this is because I have an overriding memory, which is from must be 20 or 30 years ago, that you and I were just obsessed with this because we were constantly looking up spoilers for the upcoming episodes because they aired in America first. And I remember the first time that we ever saw the USS Prometheus, we thought it was just the best thing we'd ever seen because it can split into 3.
That's awesome. Oh man.
Da, da, da. And spotting action the cells everywhere.
Oh yeah, let's go.
And then I remember us getting so excited because it was the start, the initial mention of what we thought were called the hydrogen, because we only ever saw it written in the spoiler writing. So, the Hirogen arc, I should say. But yeah, I loved all that. And when you watch the episode, we were excited for daft stuff like that. But then the comedy between Picardo and Andy Dick is just brilliant.
They were brilliant together.
So
brilliant. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a weird tone because you'd think, Romulans have captured a ship, it would be intense and everything. And it is. It's not ridiculous, but they're just so good as a comedy pairing. Mm-hmm. I have a funny story to share, a kind of joke about that, by the way, which is when Robert Picardo and Andy Dick met. And Andy Dick apparently said to Robert Picardo, Picardo, you're on Star Trek. Very similar last name to Picard. That must be weird. And apparently Robert Picardo went, oh, I'm getting grief from a guy whose last name is Dick. To be, yep, you said it. But yeah, anyway, I love this episode, and so does Steve. So Adrienne, over to you next.
Yes, obviously I've been throwing my comments in here and there. I love this episode so much. I commented on it on a different recording, I think that we did. I think it was many, many years ago, but 100 years ago when we started doing this.
It feels like it.
No way. This is a great episode. I love the Prometheus. It might have been on one of my top 10 favorite ships when we did that. It's just a great episode, and once again, I feel like anybody could watch that. Tobi could watch this with no problem. Yes. It is a fun adventure between two doctors, holographic, and they try to save the good guys from the bad guys. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it's just a great episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think literally all the backstory you need to know is Voyager is lost 70,000 light years from Earth. Right. That's it. You start with that.
That's all you need to know. Oh, also it helps to know Romulans suck.
Well, I mean, Tobi knows Romulans now, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, this would be a great, fun episode of Voyager for him to jump into if he's bored someday.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Maybe another time. I say we've already reviewed it on a full review on the podcast, but that might be a one to do on your spare time, Tobi, or just for yourself. Once you finish watching the 1,000 other things we're making you watch. Cool. Well, the fourth and final thing then for today, I'm saving it to last because it's more of a discussion potentially, but we have kind of already talked about it. And Tobi, you can kind of contribute, but probably not that much, but we'll see. So hit or miss for the remastering of Star Trek, the original series, if you're even aware of it or know the differences and things, which being incredibly geeky, I do. And on screen, just as a quick example, I've done a comparison between the original version of the Doomsday Machine and the remastered version. So, Steve, over to you.
I'm just going off this one episode. I noticed the change just off the one scene that you saw on the outside of the ship and stuff. But yeah, it makes it a little bit less corny, cheesy 70s sort of stuff. And just brings it with it, and adds in all the stuff they spend multi-million pounds on these days.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a good job for sure. So yeah, you appreciate what they've done basically. Do you really notice it, or do you just sort of think, oh, that looks? Because I think it's blended fairly seamlessly. I don't think it jars. You're not like, ooh, that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like adding the paintwork on the bottom of the Romulan warbird earlier, and it looks like it was always there.
Yeah. And even like you said, you knew you'd seen the Romulan bird of prey amongst the 3 ships. So when I told you like the story of why they didn't use it, it's like, no, it wasn't there originally. They CGI'd it in because you can. So why not? Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, no good. Just adding that and adding like the shading and things, and it just added that production quality overall to the actual show.
If you are really nerdy, by the way, I do recommend looking up special features about how they did this and tried to keep it faithful to the tone and everything of the original series. And there's a lot of thought and actual care went into it, and it was obviously by Star Trek fans. You can tell if you see any of the sort of interviews and things with them, they really did care. They were taking great care and attention to do it, and I think it's a huge hit. But one of the things I do love is if you have the Blu-ray sets, you get the choice of whether you want to watch this version or the original. So it's like it hasn't wiped the original from existence. George Lucas, it's still there if you want to see it.
All right.
So I mean, 9 times out of 10, I do watch with enhanced effects, but occasionally it's nice to go, watch the original one, just see what it was like and whatever. And there are a couple of things. I think I've mentioned this in the past. There's a couple of original effects that I just got so used to and found so charming because I've been watching them since I was young with my mum that I have to watch the original version, things like the Tholian web, because I don't think the updated version of that really does anything more special than what we already had. And I was so loving the kind of ship and the web effects and everything anyway. So there's a couple of things like that where I'm like, no, I got too used to the original version and it was well enough done. And I think Doomsday Machine's one that I'm kind of 50-50 on because I don't think the original looks terrible looking at that image on screen. I think it looks fine. The remastered one, you can see they've done something to it and it looks cooler. But I could definitely watch either of those and be fine with it, Anyway, Adrienne, over to you.
I appreciate both. I think that new people coming to it will be much more interested in watching this, but also fun to see what it used to look like before. And I'm just like you. I used to watch it with my grandma, the original stuff. So I like them both. I'm happy to see the upgrades, though.
Cool. Yeah, fair enough. Tobi, do you have any thoughts on this particularly? Or?
I mean, remasters are always a nice thing to have. And I mean, I didn't notice anything off in this episode. Let's just say that.
I think that's one of the things I would say that is a plus because you don't notice it. Like when you watch the episode, you probably weren't thinking, "Ooh, that's way too advanced for 1960s." It's clearly been added later because they do just meld it with the footage that they have so well. It's fine, and they do stick to the kind of the designs and everything the way they were. They don't like the modern shows, for example, like it or love it. They've changed the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds to look like a modern, sleek ship that fits into that world. And when they remastered this, they were like, no, we're keeping it exactly like the 1960s model. We're just making a CGI version of it because if you start changing it, that's when the rabid fans will be like, no, it's too different. So yeah, like I appreciate that as well.
I mean, it's probably also cheaper that way, I imagine, than just start over. And
I mean, it's all CGI assets, so I think it's probably roughly the same, but it's just a question of them sticking like loyal to what was there before and just making it look a bit shinier and spiffier. But there's little changes as well with some things like the fact that they had stock footage of the model orbiting a sort of fake planet that they used for every planet, so it was ridiculous. Whereas with the remastering, they've like changed the coloring or added like the way that the land masses are, made it look different, so it doesn't just look like, oh, you're back there again, are you? Right?
We came back to this place again.
And it was always the same angle. It was always like left to right orbiting and everything, and they've added a little bit of difference to the remastered ones that I appreciate, like knowing them very well. It's like, oh, okay, you've done a little bit of something here. We could be cool. And one thing to look up, I'm sure you guys who know the original series know this. Look up the remastered version of is it Who Mourns for Adonis with the green hand grabbing the Enterprise, because the original was great. The remake is so cool as well. It's genuinely like coming right away from the planet and just grabs it, and it's like, yes, you stuck the landing on that one. I love it. Anyway, that was a very nerdy thing to mention, but
Back
you
to
know.
That's
Romulan.
why we're here. We like nerdy.
Yay. Okay, with that out of the way, then we're going to move on to the bulk of the episode, which is the main review, and we will begin our analysis. But before we do that, if you've been listening to this series, the Romulan series, regularly, you'll know that as a kind of tip of the hat to our friends, I say friends, to our podcast that we're a fan of, the Delta Flyers, who are currently reviewing DS9, going through the wormhole, they do a thing where they do a limerick and a haiku for whichever episode they're reviewing. And I liked the idea of it and decided to, well, rip it off, let's be honest. So we've been doing that this season for our episodes. And I've been doing one of each. And Adrienne, when she gets the creative bug, shall we say, gets a little carried away. So out of curiosity, how many do you have this week for us?
I only made 2.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. So I'm not even going to ask you. I'm going to do limericks first, and then I'll do my haiku at the end, if you guys don't mind, because if Adrienne's got 2 limericks, we can always just get through all of them together. So, Adrienne, I have to ask, for your first limerick, please, regarding the Enterprise incident.
Okay, ready? This neutral zone is auspicious, and Dr. McCoy is suspicious. Romulan security gangs? Hey, are those hunger pangs? Some of those drinks look delicious.
I did notice the drinks actually in this episode, all weird different colors and things.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was cool. I was going, okay, why do I want to have a sip of that? Whatever it is.
It reminded me of Tranya. If you've seen the what's it called again, the Corbomite maneuver with the ship that they thought was bad, and then it was actually the little baby of Ron Howard's brother.
We love
He's like,
him.
oh, please have the Tranya. It just looks like
Clint.
thick orange juice. Clint Howard, that's right. Yeah. Oh well, I'll give you mine because I don't know why I'm weirdly proud of this. So hopefully it gets a good reaction, and you don't all just go, "What was that?" So yeah. My limerick for the Enterprise incident is follows: Captain Kirk wore a Romulan guise to steal a cloaking device prize. Spock's romance was a ploy, or was he just acting coy in this incident on the Enterprise?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I
Oh,
like that.
I did not like the silence that occurred for a second. That felt like forever.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's fun writing limericks.
It is. It's fun. So,
Yeah.
do you have your second one that you're able to give us? Or
Oh, you want to do it now?
yeah, why not? We'll be finished off, and then I'll give the haiku at the end.
Okay. That Romulan commander's a cutie, but Spock's brain cares not for her beauty, using sex as a weapon. Her legs, she's just schlepping, yet his heart stands true to his duty.
Oh, yay! I did not expect that section in the middle. I wasn't sure where that was going there. But yeah, okay. Awesome. That's fair enough then. Yeah, I'll give my haiku at the end, hopefully, if I remember. If not, someone please do remind me if you want to hear it. And before I jump into the behind the scenes, because I've got a mountain of stuff to talk about, and I don't want to just be talking all the time, so I'm going to come to first ask each of you what were your initial spoiler-free impressions were of this episode. And do you know what, Tobi? You were the first-time viewer, so it's more interesting perhaps to hear from you first. What were your initial impressions of this after one viewing?
I mean, we can only compare to the other episode, and it was not that good, but I still have a lot of things that I like about it, and I'm going to ship these 2. Let's just say that.
You're shipping Spock and the Romulan Commander.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were that watched the episodes. Yeah, I'll mention something about that later because it's to do with the writer is very fond of writing for Spock and especially for giving him romances.
Oh, I for giving him his family. You know, she's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. DC Fontana, if you're not aware, she was fantastic. Passed away a few years ago, but she was largely responsible for a lot of the better writing in the original series.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, had to use the initials DC because it was still at a time when women writers were just like, you can't write for this, you're a woman. So unfortunately,
yes. We will say Dorothy Catherine.
There you go. I didn't know the Catherine, I didn't know Dorothy, but yeah, there we go. Cool. So what did you think then, Adrienne? I'm assuming you've seen it before, but what did you think this time of the episode? Does it still hold up if you think so, or whatever?
Yeah, it holds up. The acting is great. I think that Joanne Linville did an amazing job. She's just such a scene stealer in this episode and really held her own against you know, all the Star Trek stuff, and I thought it was great. I loved it. I mean, it's, you know, I have other episodes that I like more that I would watch before I would watch this from TOS, but you know, it's a good one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Steve, what about you? What do you make of this episode? I don't think I've ever actually asked you about this particular one before.
Yeah, well, I don't watch a lot of TOS, so it's actually just nice to see the original series, and it's very different in the pacing and things like that. These days, it's a lot more action, bang, 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 on the next thing, explosion, starship, do some random thing. Yeah, let's see, just back to how it was based on characters.
Yeah.
And just seeing, and one of my criticisms of Discovery was always the captain's always doing everything, and really they are just rolling back to the captain doing everything as they did in the original series.
Oh yeah, completely. That's, I think when people make that complaint, a lot of people online will just be like, "You haven't watched TOS in a while, have you?" Because Kirk does everything. It's like, you know, a secret undercover mission. Yeah, send the captain. He's expendable. You know what? But yeah, you kind of have to roll with that. Like you said, it was the 60s, and it was very much that's the lead of the show. So, and of course, behind the scenes, there are rumors that Shatner would count how many lines he and Nimoy had, and if he had one less, oh, he wasn't having it. But, you know, we're not here to necessarily debate that one back and forth, but yeah. So yeah, one of the things I did want to ask then, Tobi, you're probably the youngest amongst us, and you're least used to this kind of you know, this era of TV. Did you find it very different being from the 1960s? Because obviously you watch a lot of modern stuff, and then the last Trek episode I made you watch was Next Generation, which was from the kind of 80s, early 90s. So what did you make of the original series compared to that?
I mean, I don't mind this kind of stuff. The only thing that threw me a little bit off was the accents. That was like, it was like for a couple of seconds, I was like, oh, yeah, we're at 60s. We're talking like that now.
Oh, right. I see. Yeah. I think that people tended to sound a lot more like radio announcers.
Right. Very formalized almost, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't really know what else to add to that, so I'll jump in, and I've got, like I said, a lot of behind-the-scenes information for this one, so I'm going to just go through it, and if you guys have any thoughts or you wanted to add anything or ask any questions, please feel free, and hopefully we can get through it. So I'll start by saying that DC Fontana's initial inspiration for this story and its title was the Pueblo incident, which involved the capture of an American patrol boat, the USS Pueblo, AGER-2, by North Korean forces during the Vietnam War. The incident occurred on January 23rd, 1968, just 2 months before Fontana completed her first draft of this story. She noted it was really based on the Pueblo incident in the sense that here's this ship caught spying and they have to find a justification for their being there. Kirk's sanity is put on the line in terms of why they're there. Then, of course, they have to get out safely, preferably with the information they came for. Now, that's not what happened with the Pueblo, but the incident kicked off this line of thinking in my mind. Didn't know that. Didn't know it was based on a real-life thing, but cool. In Fontana's first draft script, dated 7th of June 1968, it's explicitly stated that the Romulans have an improved, undetectable version of the cloaking device, which was a prismatic type of mechanism. It was stored in a lab waiting to be installed on the Romulan ship rather than an already operational mechanism. Also in the original draft, both Kirk and McCoy are disguised as Romulans to steal the device. Probably couldn't afford the makeup for two of them in the end. The first draft of the episode stressed the attraction between Spock and the Romulan Commander based on their common heritage. Originally, Spock was supposed to kiss the Commander. The first draft script described Spock as raining kisses on every square inch above the shoulder. But both Nimoy and Linville agreed they needed something different from normal human love expressions, and they suggested the hand contact instead. Nimoy, in fact, wrote a long letter of complaint to Gene Roddenberry about this issue. In Star Trek Lives, Dorothy Fontana tells how she attempted to warn Roddenberry about fan reactions if Spock were to behave out of character. She insisted that Nimoy was right, that the pair's interactions should suggest an alien sexuality but not human passion. Even with Nimoy and Linville's restrained gestural contact, Fontana was flooded with letters from fans like Tobi. But yeah, fans did complain, though they were aware of the Ponfar and believing it meant Vulcans had sex only once every 7 years, which was Theodore Sturgeon's original idea. They complained that the scene was out of character. Years later, Fontana wrote sex scenes into the novel Vulcan's Glory, establishing that the Ponfar is only a fertility cycle and that Vulcans can and do have sex anytime. So that's probably more about Vulcan sex than you ever thought you needed to hear, but there we go.
Wow. Well, I'm done now, really. Yeah.
I love that she was just so petty about it that she just wrote a Vulcan sex novel. Like,
yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah, that's cool. That you're probably nothing to you because you probably aren't aware of the whole 7-year love cycle of Vulcans and stuff, Tobi. But yeah, nerdy nitpicks. I think everybody kind of realizes they probably are capable of having sex with that. Anyway, but yeah, there is a lot of chemistry between Nimoy and Linville in this episode. I think it's easy to see and safe to say that. And I kind of love that they had that weird kind of gestural touching with the fingers, which again carries over into Star Trek 3. Which is when Savick kind of has to talk Spock through his first Ponfar, and because he's regrowing or whatever, and you see it again, they're just touching fingers rather than anything else. And I like that, like alien, as they said, alien sexuality, it sort of sells it a bit more for me. What did you guys think of Spock and Linville together?
Yeah, I like their chemistry. The actors really pulled it off. They really did well. I bet you there's a lot of funny things that were said on the set, just to keep it lively, because a lot of the scenes were very intense.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't find a lot of kind of behind the scenes in terms of the actual filming of the episode.
Yeah. IRL, I guess.
Yeah. I just know, like I said, Joanne Linville was very popular with the people that make the show, the actors in the show, and I think she's won polls or something for like one of the most influential and important guest stars and one of the best acted. And you can kind of see why. I think she always grabbed my attention since the first time I watched this,
Absolutely.
Cool. I think it's partly as well, like I briefly had this conversation with you, Adrienne. Part of the thing is that the original series spent a few episodes saying like women can't be in charge. They are too emotional and irrational. And then you actually have a female commander in this episode, and it's like, incredible.
All right.
You do admit that these things are perhaps a bit sexist that you're saying here, because she's more than capable, I think. I mean,
it goes really well for her, though, doesn't
it? Well, I mean, yeah, it kind of proves their point in some regards, but does it really? I mean, like I said, I always thought of her as quite a strong and capable commander. She doesn't get suckered in, and she kind of, in that initial scene, for example, when she's actually standing up to Kirk and she shouts him down, like no other guest stars ever got the right to do that. And it's when he's like, we were doing such and such, and it was just this, and she's like, you would not, do not lie to me. And I was like, wow, Kirk never doesn't have the upper hand in these situations,
Well, it's interesting to me because you can see them saying, well, we're not going to make her a Starfleet captain because, of course, that would never occur. So we'll make her a Romulan. Romulans are different. They're aliens, and they would do this. You can just hear like sexist people back then talking, but watching it now, it's like, of course the Romulans had leaders like that. Of course they did, because everybody did except us.
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
I just love the implication.
Yeah.
I just love the implication that the Romulans are just more progressive.
Yeah, that's it.
In a way, yes. That's the thing, though.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. I mean, they are related to the Vulcans, and so they are basically portrayed constantly as just like, we are so superior to you. You guys, you're still squabbling with your petty emotions and stuff. It's adorable. Just shush. The adults are talking. So there's a little bit of that, I think, as well. But that's one thing I wanted to ask, because it occurs to me, actually, thinking about the episode, that Tobi, you've probably got no idea about the Romulan Vulcan connection. So as kind of a first thing, was it a surprise to you when it came up in the episode?
I mean, define surprise. It's kind of hard to be surprised about this stuff. It's just like the plot is going there, and that's fine, and that's a good device to get the plot where it needs to be.
Yeah.
That's just what I thought. I wasn't like sitting there going, "What?" Wow.
Well, no, it's weird because it was already established that it was played initially for the very first time as a surprise. That they looked alike and thus they were obviously related in some ways. But like I said, I don't think it comes up in the Next Generation episode you watched, and I wasn't sure if you'd kind of put two and two together and been like, hang on, pointy ears, eyebrows, they're very similar to that other species I know.
No.
Okay.
No.
Fair enough. But yeah, did you find that interesting then, that angle, or was it just one of those things that washed over you like, that's part of the plot?
I don't think I found this connection itself very interesting. I just found it interesting how we bounce off of that into their relationship. That was the fun part.
Yeah, it was basically a chance for it was a thing they could latch onto for the why Spock and this woman would be attracted, I guess, to each other on some level, or what would connect them, Yeah, okay, fair enough. So I'm going to jump to my notes here. What do you guys think about all of the various, and I talked about this a little bit during the Defector, Tobi, the various like machinations and the kind of the tricks that Kirk's pulling, like initially acting really mean and like he's losing his mind and he's the one that crosses the neutral zone, and Spock, initially seems to sell him out, but then it turns out that's a ploy and a double cross. And were you, did it hold your attention, all of that, or were you just bored of it by the end? What did you think? Tobi.
Yeah. I think it this whole plot dances on the border of being too clever, where we reach the point where it's just so many things happening, so many layers of cleverness that you're just checking out and going like, this does not seem realistic. This just seems weird. And I think it comes very close to that. I don't think it reaches the point where I just mentally was like off the plot, but I think it's pushing the border really hard in this episode, and I think that's one of the problems I have with this episode. The main problem, I think, for me.
Right. That's weird, because I've never really had that issue, but I was reading about it, and I'll mention it later on, that the episode writer really has an issue with that, and she's kind of like, some of the rewrites and stuff made it seem that the Romulan commander was stupider than she would have been, and she would have potentially seen through this like ruse a bit quicker. Was that what you were meaning? That you didn't quite believe she'd fall for it, or you just, some things were a bit, over the top, like the kind of fake death and all the rest of it?
Yeah, no, I think it's more like this plan is so elaborate and it just works perfectly. And this is, it's not really that she is, that she can't see through it when it's working perfectly like it is. It's just that at no point anything random happened that just could throw this off. It's like so perfect in so many steps that it comes off as a little bit weird.
Okay. What about you, Adrienne, then? Because you've obviously got a longer history with this, like myself and probably Steve have. So what do you make of this, the Romulanizing that they're going up to, shall we say?
Well, that was one of kind of the female trope things that I had mentioned on Discord or wherever I was chatting, was that, she's all obsessed with other things all of a sudden. All of a sudden she's fallen for this guy and she's not focusing, and that just seemed like it could be something that somebody tried to say, that's why you can't have a woman in command, because she gets all distracted and feminine wiles and all these things. But it's interesting that Tobi said nothing went wrong, because when I was watching it, I was just this time really, I was like, oh, I forgot that we were waiting on a message from Spock. And Spock never gave him the message, and Kirk has to hide on the ship and pretend, has to talk to security dudes, and, ends up getting into the place where the equipment is, and he does have to do that. So I think that little part is what saves the episode, just the fact that everything didn't go the way Kirk wanted it to go.
Yeah, because Spock goes to contact Kirk when he finally gets a minute, and he's like, "Captain, are you ready for the coordinates?" And Kirk's like, "I'm already here, man."
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, dumbass. Where you been? What's up? Hook a brother up. What am I supposed to do?
And even as you said, like when he's being beamed over, it's not like a matter of just oh well, we'll be fine. He even says to Scotty, like, we're not going to have any precise coordinates, but just don't land me in the middle of a bulkhead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, all right, okay. So yeah, I see what you mean. There's a little bit there, not obviously a load, and obviously it didn't really, it didn't register with Tobi probably.
Right,
but,
and it went so perfectly, because I think what Tobi is saying is, he just ran around on a Romulan ship and he was, doing all this stuff, and how could that happen? But it does. Welcome to Star Trek, I guess.
It's also like they must presumably have had intelligence reports that they knew they were going to meet a female Romulan commander, or Spock was just going to play gay, because the entire plot just basically rides on Spock seducing this Romulan commander. So, like, if it had been somebody that's not interested in men, Spock was going to be screwed by that,
I'm headcanoning the second one. They just hoped it would work out.
Even in the episode, is it Trials and Tribulations where Jadzia sees Spock? And she,
Yes.
and she said, but Cisco doesn't know who she's looking at. Either she's looking at Kirk or Spock. And of course, Cisco assumes she's looking at Kirk. She's like, oh, you know, those eyes. And oh, he's so much more striking. And it turns out she's looking at Spock and not Kirk, you know, which was the opposite of what, you know, was being put out back in the day, that Kirk is this and Kirk is that. But really, Spock is more intriguing and interesting. He's more subtle.
I think that's kind of, I mean, I wasn't there, but I think that was basically what happened with the fandom, and that was part of what made Shatner jealous, is that a lot of people were more drawn to Nimoy and to Spock.
Well, yeah.
And a lot of those were women who were attracted to that. And like I said, DC Fontana, in the episodes that she writes, the vast majority of them are about Spock's like weird alien sexuality and him wanting to have a relationship and feeling the love, whether it's like for Nurse Chapel that they're obviously developing more on Strange New Worlds now, or the episode where he gets, as Futurama puts it, the episode where he gets high on spores and smacks Kirk around. But he also has.
I have never seen that. Oh my gosh, that happens! Wow. Oh, by the way, Toby, sorry we're going way into Star Trek lore, but you know you're just along for the ride.
Well, he knows what we're talking about, though, because like I said, it all kind of takes place in this episode as well. But yeah, so there's always been a bit of that with Spock, and I think that obviously that is the key crux of this episode, is that it has to be about his romance, you know, sly romance with this Romulan commander. That
well, she asked for him to come over. You know, the commander.
Well, she
wanted
asked
to
for them
see.
to
we
go,
didn't know what gender she was. The commander wanted to see Spock. And it also could be that Spock is just going to use logic. So maybe it was assumed that if the commander was a man, Spock would have to logic him out, you know, have to logic it along.
I really can't see the scene playing out the same if it was a man, if Spock was to say, oh, your name is so beautiful, but so incongruous, spoken by a soldier. And then a guy's just like, I'm going to go slip into something more comfortable then, Spock.
No, I don't mean that, but that would be funny. But what I mean is, I guess since the commander wanted to see Spock, they're probably like, okay, well, Spock will go over, but, you know, Spock is not going to be Jim Kirk, and we'll see what happens. And so either way, it could have gone either way.
Yeah. Someone is writing that fan fiction at this very moment.
Yes.
Oh, it's 99.9% already out there, Toby. Believe me. The Kirk and Spock were basically what founded slash fiction as a term.
So basically, Star Trek is the supernatural of the 60s.
I mean, yeah, in a lot of ways. It did start off all of that, like, you know, shipping and these words that you think of, slash fiction and all that kind of thing. That's where it began, you know. Fans were taking their own thing and their own interpretations. It's weird. But yeah, I mean, that's cool, obviously a digression.
There were a cool early, like some sketches I saw earlier was like Uhura and Sulu holding hands on the beach. You know, I saw that a long time ago, like as a little kid, somebody has drawn it somewhere. And I was like, oh, that didn't happen, but that's really nice. So I guess they were shipping them.
I mean, even the movies do it, because don't Uhura and Scott, you have a thing going by like the 5th movie.
Yeah, they definitely have a little something.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, the shipping was, I mean, having said that, obviously the big example that's not in this episode, but the biggest example would be Spock and Nurse Chapel, which they really play the melodrama of in the episodes of the original series. And then, like I said, Strange New Worlds took that and ran with it. So, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Like I said, I think it's not super relevant to this episode, but it is in terms of, like I said, people liked writing Spock in those situations, and it's very rare in a way that you got Kirk having that kind of thing going on, because he was usually hump him and dump him, basically, you know, to coin the phrase. He was never like, I fell so in love and I had to leave her, except that one episode, which I think is fantastic, City on the Edge of Forever, which is that's why that has so much more impact, because it's an actual love and not Kirk just like, well, never mind.
Spock is just more cerebral. He's more interesting, smarter, you know. it just makes him a more interesting man than Kirk.
I mean, like I said, I think a lot of women would probably say the same. I can't really speak for them, but like I said, I've certainly heard popularity-wise, that's the way it goes. So anyway, Steve, we haven't come to you for a while. I'm well aware, and you've been very quiet. So, what do you make of all of this subterfuge?
Listening in, really, but yeah, I think you've hit on all the main points there. It would be very interesting to have known what their plan was if it wasn't a female commander. You know, whether they're just going to have drinks and be bros and go, oh, can I go see
they might have just been, they could have similarly been like, well, we'll play on the Romulan Vulcan connection. So it could have been a plan to just go over and be like, bro, You're one of us, man. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And yeah, I just said, the flirting and stuff that's sort of going on, and the fact it isn't as obvious as you would make, if it was humans, it would be a very different scene. And
Yeah.
as you said, it's a lot more cerebral in conversations, and then it builds up from there. Yeah, I would say it's very interesting that the look of a Romulan is sort of set. They've got very short hair, got the eyebrows, but she has long hair.
Yeah.
And that is quite unique.
In all of the 60s ones, they do that, though, because like the Klingon look was fully set, and then you see a Klingon woman, and it's just like, that's just a woman. They've done it was as if they wanted all the women to look attractive, and they were like, minimum makeup, just the minimal. And even like the commander's uniform, they do the same as they do with the Starfleet ones. Like, she's got to have a mini dress. She's in charge, for crying out loud. Like, why would
that's
she be
what
wearing...
she's comfortable in.
But then it makes it all the more ridiculous when Spock is like, so incongruous, spoken by a soldier. Oh, I'll get changed into something a bit skimpier. It's like, you're already wearing like a 3-inch skirt. What more can you possibly do here?
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's one of the things from the 60s, though, isn't it? Unfortunately, I did note that this was a couple of nitpicks that I'm going to have to bring up. First of all, when they first cross the neutral zone and they shouldn't, and the Romulan commander just says, nobody should have to decide quickly to die. I'll give you an hour. And I was like, that's lucky. That was a bit arbitrary, wasn't it? Like, we could destroy you, but we'll just sit around for an hour. All right. That's where I kind of sided with Tobi and was just like, this is going too well. Similarly, when they think, what was it? They think something's gone wrong and Kirk's been killed or something. I forget what specifically happened, but they have to call McCoy over. It's before that, because that's where it happens. But anyway, they've got to call McCoy to see to Kirk because there's been a medical emergency. And I was just like, have Romulans not got their own doctor? Did they just leave Space Dock without a doctor on board? What the heck?
Well, in the episode, they actually confirm that the Romulan doctor has seen him, but also the fact that they let him beam over and then let him leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And don't get me started on the fact that they can just beam back and forth through shields in this episode, because we haven't established that rule yet.
Clearly, nobody has shields up because that's the way it is, and they haven't got weapons locks, and there's a lot of things.
I mean, I could understand, except the first time when it was like, you beam here and we'll beam hostages to you. We'll do an exchange. Then they're going to lower their shields for that. Fair enough. But then it's like you said, in terms of the plan going too well, it's just like, just beam Kirk over to the Romulan ship. Their shields are up, man. How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
But again, that was such a nerdy nitpick that I'm guessing nobody else even noticed. Yeah. I did sort of like that they referenced the cloaking device quite early on, in case you're wondering what it is that they're actually going there for and what this is all about, because I think that could have gotten confusing. Where was I? I loved all the scenes between the commander and Spock. I think it was really nice interplay that, again, you didn't get a lot in the 60s that you kind of do now, this kind of back and forth, particularly with the underlying sexual attraction or whatever else. And yeah, I liked it. I thought it was cool, with the exception of, like I said, when Spock got way too cheesy, when it was clearly like written for the 60s. So like when he's saying things like, "Oh, your name, beautiful, incongruous, spoken by a soldier, I'll get changed." I'm like, oh, this is veering into, all our children, Bold and the Beautiful soap opera type territory here. I'm not loving that. And just on the edge of that, but I actually found it amusing, was Spock going, this should actually stimulate our conversation. All right. Whatever. Yeah, fair enough. But I did like that Spock kind of stayed true to the ship at the end and blah, blah, blah. So, we've been through, I think, most of the writing of the episode. I can't think of anything else to say other than, well, we haven't really addressed it, so I'll bring this up. What did you guys make of Kirk doing his best Romulan face and beaming over and capturing the cloaking device, other than it being very convenient? Tobi, what did you make of that? Or was it just like you said, it was far too easy?
I mean, I applaud the zero effort to make it. Just picking like some random eyeliner from a makeup trailer, just painting a little bit and going, that works. It's good enough.
He had the pointed ears.
He's very proud of his pointed ears as well.
I do love that when they think he's dead, and Scotty's line when he beams over and he's like, "Kirk, you look like the devil himself." As long as you Really? You guys have a weird idea. But all right. Yeah. Oh, bless. So, no, I mean, I kind of like it. I don't know why. It's just, maybe because as a kid, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Little subterfuge, little mission disguised as a Romulan. But like you, I also find it very unbelievable that one Romulan soldier goes by when he's beamed in, and Kirk's just like, I've effected an escape from the vessel. Go to your station or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And just walks away. Like, you don't think you should tell somebody about this guy who's just escaped? And said, okay, go about your business, whatever.
Yeah, that was a little too easy.
Yeah, very. What about you, Steve? What did you make of Kirk's Romulan guys?
Yeah, it did what it was supposed to, did it? It fooled them all. Clearly, they obviously don't pay much attention to each other. I was going to say, when you mentioned like the teleporting in, though, like in other things, they mentioned how packed the ships were, or how big they were, and yet you don't often see a lot of crew walking around. And again, no crew walking around, no, sensors going, someone's just transported on the ship, anything like that.
Yeah, it was very much before they'd established, I think, all of these kind of hard and fast sort of sci-fi geeky type rules, so you could just do what you wanted at that point.
Yeah, they can cloak a big old huge aircraft or spacecraft, but they can't detect that somebody has beamed in.
But they can detect that someone just phoned someone in that.
Yeah, but they can detect that there was a little communication.
I love that. I love that because I just wrote that's like, it's that moment from every horror movie where you're just like, the call's coming from inside the house, but it's actually Spock in the quarters.
Yeah.
Nice. No, I liked all that. I thought it was pretty good. And like I said, I even liked Scotty being in command and actually standing firm and being like, the only orders I take are from Captain Kirk. Or if you try to board us, we'll just blow the ship up with as many of you as we can take with us. Okay, cool. Stand firm, Scotty.
Every crew needs a Scotty.
Absolutely. So I'll before I move on, I have to kind of ask about this. So what did you guys think, particularly you, Tobi, for the first time, of like Kirk's initially very erratic behavior? Did you believe any of it, that he was just going mad and, attacking, being snappy towards Sulu and Chekhov, and then when Spock initially sells it out and he's like, I'll kill you, you bastard, I'll kill you. You hear what human ingenuity sounds like or whatever. Human integrity sounds like. Did you believe that for a second, or were you like, yeah, this is a ploy?
No, I actually believe that. I'm going to be honest. Because I thought this was kind of what the episode was going for, like a misunderstanding of sorts, and that they're kind of going for, who's going to get away? Do they get away from this? How do they Romulans use the situation? But I thought it was that the way it started was genuine, and we're just going from there. I mean, obviously, later when the plot unfolds, I catched it before it was revealed. But
yeah,
in the beginning, I'd say probably until they started flirting, I think around there, I kind of caught up.
Got you. Okay. I do kind of think that's clever as well myself. I really like that, the idea that the reason they're doing this is that if they do get captured, that they can kind of, the Enterprise and the Federation and whatever are off the hook, and they can just basically blame Kirk for everything and disavow all knowledge for everybody else and be like, just him, he's crazy, he did it, So, makes sense anyway in that regard. I have to ask you about this because it's one of those famous things that everyone that's not a Star Trek fan always doesn't realize, that the Vulcan death grip doesn't actually exist. It's not a real thing. Did you believe the Vulcan death grip for even a second that Kirk was dead, or were you like, yeah, that's nothing?
I mean, I believed it, but also thought it was silly.
It looks ridiculous, to be fair.
I took the show at face value that it's a thing that exists, but at the same time, I was like, you could have gone better than this.
Yeah, they do that a lot as well. It's a trick they fall back on a lot, where they like, we slowed your heart rate down enough so that you appeared dead, but you weren't really, and we brought you back, and it's like, all right, okay. Fair enough, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's nice that they had that thing going on. And like I said, a lot of non-Star Trek fans tend to think the Vulcan death grip is a thing, or they mistake it, I think, with the neck pinch maybe, which is real. But yeah, fair enough.
I mean, there is a medication that can stop your heart, and then like after I think a couple seconds, it starts again. I think something like that, or like a minute or so. Like it's really used. I don't know the specifics, but it's used. I've seen it on Grey's Anatomy. It's real.
I've seen that kind of thing before, but I don't think it's the kind of thing where it's like, you could appear dead and fool a Romulan who's then examining you and then get beamed back. And
No,
as
that's a
McCoy
little
says,
long.
you're fortunate they didn't start an autopsy. Exactly. But yeah, anyway, what was I going to say? I think, if I'm not mistaken as well, this might be the first reference to the supposed myth that Vulcans can't lie. And the idea that it's obviously, bullshit, but Spock's getting around it by just like withholding the truth isn't lying. Which is pretty cool. But yeah. So anyway, what do you guys think of all of this? Like I said, the other things I've mentioned. Any thoughts on that up to now? Steve, what about you?
Which bit?
I can't remember what I was saying.
Yeah. No, like old stuff, new stuff. It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's what I was saying. Was like, did you believe the kind of ploy? Can you remember even back to the first time you watched it? Were you believing Kirk was like mad and shouting at everyone and whatever? Or
I think these days they might try and build that up in a previous episode.
Right. Yeah.
And then it'd be like a two-parter, yes, where they're building it up. But this was just like a couple of minutes at the start where he's being a bit of an arsehole. And he then goes on the ship, goes full, and then at the end, like a bit later on, he's sitting there when McCoy's examining him, just looking like his hair's all dishevelled and stuff like that, like he needs a comb.
Yeah, and he's just rocking back and forth, going, "I kill you, Beth."
Yeah. Exactly. So that's a sign of craziness whether or not you've combed your hair.
Then I'm definitely crazy. Fair enough. And any thoughts from you, Adrienne, about that? Did you believe any of it really, or?
Well, I did see when I was a little kid, I thought that he was grouchier than normal, but I don't know if I remember thinking he was dead. But probably logical little Adrienne would have said, "Well, no, because he's not dead. He's going to come back with."
Yeah.
Now, of course, we would just use naloxone or whatever the OD drug revival stuff is.
Or, just bring back his Katra or get magic triple blood or whatever. They've got 1,000 ways to do it nowadays.
Yes, his Katra. What were we thinking?
Fair enough. I'll move us along to the next thing then, which we've touched on a little bit on this, but what did you guys think of the acting in the episode? And again, Tobi, I'm going to come to you because this was all new to you. Were you impressed by Shatner, Nimoy, and Linville in particular, or did anyone stand out? What did you think of the acting?
I think Spock and the Commander were very well acted. Kirk was a little bit over the top, but I think that was by design. I think it was meant to be.
I think that's the note that I've made, is that the plot actually plays to Shatner overacting because he's kind of supposed to be, because it's a play act within an acting. Like, you know what I mean? He's Kirk is acting a different way himself, so you get away with it to that degree. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, so they both were great. Kirk was overacting, but I think it kind of works more or less. And everyone else was. I think these were the main acting ones that are important. The rest just did their job and was good. I didn't notice anyone doing a horrible job.
No, everyone's pretty standard. But did you were you impressed with the big guest star then, with Joanne Linville as the Romulan Commander?
Yeah, she felt very comfortable in the role. I think she just jumped into it perfectly. She was really great.
And I know you well enough to know that I bet you really appreciated the serve when she just swiveled her chair around and revealed who she was. She just, aha! Woman. Yeah. What about you then, Adrienne? What did you think of the acting in the episode in particular?
Great acting in this episode. Great by everyone. Of course, I think Joanne Linville did an amazing. And I love that you just referenced the spinabout, because, she decided, she saw Spock, she knew he was there. I mean, on the ship, she has secret cameras. She could look onto the Enterprise. She brought him over. She's like, I will seduce this Vulcan.
I would say it was the opposite. I'd say Spock saw her and was like, I will seduce this Romulan. Yeah, fair enough. Cool. And what about you, Steve?
Yeah. It just works in the
It just
episode,
works.
really. Yeah.
Fair enough. One thing I did notice that I wanted to point out, because I don't know if it's the sort of thing you would notice or if it's subtle, or maybe the opposite. It's too over the top, and I'm just not. I'm an idiot. But when I'm noticing, like, once you've kind of established that these two are trying to seduce each other, Joanne Linville does this thing where she just starts posing, just like head behind her hands on the chair, just like Spock, like she's some kind of like magazine cover model or something. I'm just like,
Yeah.
all right, okay,
Flashing
good.
the legs and stuff like that. And yeah. I think we always expect Kirk's overacting as well, which is the other part of it. But yeah, it was nice just seeing that interaction, though. And yeah, the different sexual side of things. As we've said earlier, we've been talking about it, we expect what humans go get on with. But to see two Vulcans or near Vulcans go at it.
Yeah. And I think Nimoy was really good the way he played Spock, because he didn't, like, even though it was a believable romance, he didn't like give in to the over emotionality of it. He was still quite stoic and Vulcan and had that kind of thing going on, but then still at the very end admitted it, which I think makes it all that more powerful, where it's kind of like we actually did share something, and she's like, well, it'll be our little secret,
Yeah, that's what it was for sure. Mm-hmm.
And I think you can see that in the acting of the scenes, that there is something, because I kind of clocked that before they revealed that in the end that there was something for both sides.
Yes.
Something real.
Definitely. Yeah. That's good. That obviously shows they did the job quite well, and it was well acted. So, yeah. I mean, other than that, I've only got a few smaller notes about other people. Just that DeForest Kelly's good as Dr. McCoy. Even though he doesn't get a load to do, the things he gets to do are nice, and I found it very refreshing at the start of the episode where he actually criticized Kirk and stood up for Spock, because that just very rarely happens. So when he's saying like, I can't believe there's any price you would give that would make Spock sell out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's fair.
Well, I mean, it just shows that they pulled it off for a while. They pulled off the ruse.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I've already mentioned, I thought James Doohan was great as either the badass captain or the kind of, it's the biggest guess I've ever made cloak and device type thing. So I appreciated that. And everyone else was just good, just doing their job. Yeah, as you said, pretty good at what they were required to do. Any other thoughts on the acting, or shall I move us along?
Oh, we're good. Yeah. Move us along. Move along home.
Cool. Before we get to the directing, then I'm going to give you some things, because I have some notes on the VFX production design, so I may as well drop them here, because why not? First of all, the Matt Jeffries designed Romulan symbol, composed of a yellow hexagon in the center with 3 colored spokes, can be seen outside the commander's quarters above her door. This symbol never appears again in any Star Trek series or movie. Random. The Romulans use Klingon disruptor pistols, and the Klingon bridge set is reused from Ilan of Troyes. The Romulans refer to their bridge, though, as Control Central. We already talked about the kind of borrowing of Klingon sets and things. The Romulan cloaking device prop consists of part of Nomad's head and a globe from Return to Tomorrow. Recycling. The Romulan console that holds the cloaking device had been used before in I Mode and Return of the Archons, and was used again in Whom Gods Destroy. The computer device in the Romulan commander's quarters used to record Spock's testimony reappeared in the Lights of Zetar later. In the decompression chamber room, the top of the device is a round computer monitor without its lower gooseneck part, recycled from the pilot episodes. Wow, you got to respect them saving money. And both the Romulan commander's uniform and casual attire were designed by William Ware Tice. The commander's uniform was patterned after the male Romulan costume, but like the Federation, it revealed more of her form, incorporating a miniskirt. In a rare instance, though, Tice's original sketch of the commander's uniform and the resulting costume were identical. So, nailed it first time. I also noticed one of the enhanced updated effects has the Romulan bird of prey flying in, looking really cool, which, as I said, wasn't there initially. The Enterprise cloaking effect, I think, is great. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the reason that you see so many of the background Romulans in those gold helmets is because it's cheaper than actually giving them the eyebrow and ear makeup. So you just cover that part of them and you haven't got to bother making up all the extras. So if ever you see like somebody with a helmet, that's why. It saves time and money. So did you guys have any thoughts on VFX or production design that stood out? That we haven't talked about already?
I love that where they record the message in the end, towards the end. It just looks like some nightclub. I just love design choice.
It's the Romulan commander's quarters, I think it's supposed to be, but yeah, it does look kind of like,
not under guard at that point either. It's like, yes, just come in and I'll take your your statement.
Yeah, that was another thing that I found ridiculously convenient as well when Spock was just like, I believe you happen to have this convenient thing where you have to give me a right to final state. Oh, yes, all right, fair enough. And he just basically filibusters her. He's there going, well, my duty as a staff officer, according to Section 69, Regulation 2. Like, Spock, we know this. There's nothing to say what I can and can't say in this. You just shush. So anyway, I woke up this morning, I had a piece of toast. Yeah, fair enough.
Well, I stepped away for a moment. Did you guys talk about the colors?
No, not yet. That's a good thing about the production design, though. So, what did you want to mention?
Well, the colors on the Romulan ship are, well, it was always like this in the original series, of course. And watching it now on this big, huge, 4K, whatever TV we have, it's so vibrant. It's so incredible. It's so 1968. It's just, I'm absolutely in love with it. But the colors on the Romulan ship were just striking because there would be like pink next to red, next to green with like a weird silver pattern. And it was crazy, but it totally worked. Yeah. And normally for me, like I get a little overwhelmed with a lot of oranges and reds mixed together because somehow my brain sees that they're too close on the color wheel, but somehow it works so well on the Romulan ship. And kind of knowing that the Romulans are cold, as it were, they're a very cool kind of a group, and they're not
emotional
loving
compared to the Vulcans, but yeah.
Yes, agreed. But the Vulcans live on a lava planet, basically. They literally live inside a volcano, whatever. But I mean, I just felt like the color scheme really worked, and of course, every time I'm listening to these things in my car, the music is so striking for every single scene. It's so well done, and you just. When I'm driving, I know, there's flirting because there's like a little harp and there are little bells. And then all of a sudden, something's going to go dark, because there's like,
yeah, I have notes about that later on. But one of the big things I noticed was, like you said, it's we don't really do it a lot these days because I think we kind of expect acting and stuff to, support things itself. But I just found it jarring in a kind of funny way when Kirk just makes like any kind of controversial thing. So he'll say like, take us in to the neutral zone, and the music just goes like don't. And I'm like, oh, was that a bad decision? Maybe.
Exactly.
So yeah, fair enough. So any thoughts then on we'll move to the directing, because I have a couple of small things, but not much. I will tell you the director of this was somebody called John Meredith Lucas, and that's as high as my notes go on facts and figures. So did anything stand out about the direction or no?
Nothing to comment on, no.
No. Well, again, I've already mentioned I love the iconic kind of spinning chair, if that was a direction thing. I found parts of it to be quite tonally mismatched at the end when they were playing like the comedy thing, but also the seriousness of we might blow the ship up and kill you all, or we might, the Romulan cloaking device might destroy us or whatever. It was kind of like, all right, it's a little weird, but again, I think that's the original series and that's the 60s for you. Nothing was really played as too melodramatic, shall we say. And other than that, I liked the reveal of Romulan Kirk, that you don't see him, you just see Scotty's reaction at first. The seduction scene, of course, it does that thing where it all goes into shadow and the lens is all blurry. And again, it's very soap opera, but you appreciate it when you see it, I guess. And finally, what was I going to say? Awful lot of extreme close-ups. Mr. Lucas seems to like his extreme close-ups of everyone's face, I noticed in this episode. So yeah, that was all I had to say. Anything else on the direction though?
Yeah, a lot of that. The lighting.
Yeah, for sure.
Romulan camera, Romulan Commander, which flirt especially. A lot of light on her eyes, and the rest of it's all in shadow and stuff, just highlighting that and things.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very common kind of things to do to sell that romance idea, but it works. It's effective.
Yeah.
Cool. In terms of music and sound, we already mentioned, but I'll give you the little bit I have on this. Alexander Courage returned to compose the music for this episode. Later in the season, he also composed music for Plato's Stepchildren, which was his last score for Star Trek. In the second season, Courage composed about a half hour of musical cues and conducted some music for the series. He also famously composed the theme tune to the original series. though Gene Roddenberry would write ultimately unused lyrics in order to get co-writing credit and half of the financial royalties. Make of that what you will. Savvy or an arse move? It's up to you to decide, I guess. That one. And yeah, I mentioned the rest, the kind of dad shocking moments and the romantic soapy music. Did anything else stand out from the guys about the music?
There's a funny little scene with the use of music where the two Romulans step off the transporter to Scotty, and he just like puts his, crosses his arms, giving him a dirty Scottish look. Like, what? What are you going to do? You're going to come at me right now?
I'll hit but you Romulans.
Yeah. And there was no words, no nothing. But Scotty was like, are you serious? I'm Scotty. Don't you know me? Haven't you heard?
Any last thoughts on anything else at all that we've mentioned then before I go to the audience reaction to this one? No? Okay, fair enough. I didn't get a lot of audience response, as usual. I always ask on social media, like, what you think of these episodes, and for whatever reason, this one didn't seem to get a lot of responses, but I have got sort of a critical response in terms of how other people react to the episode, which I'll kind of read out. So yeah, this is the section that I call Subspace Communications.
Incoming transmission.
I'll start by saying then that, as I mentioned earlier, DC Fontana, who wrote this episode, remarked, overall, it was not a bad episode, but I did have a lot of complaints about it and things that weren't approached or handled right. Let's face it, the romantic scene between the Romulan Commander and Spock was totally out of context. Any Romulan worth her salt would have instantly suspected Spock because they're related races. That was wrong. Kirk's attitudes were wrong. A simple thing, the cloaking device was supposed to be very small, about the size of a watch, for instance, and it could be easily hidden. Here's Kirk running around with this thing that looks like a lamp, highly visible. This is stupidity as well as illogical thinking. Visually, it was stupid. Conceptually, it was very bad. There were a lot of little things that were changed, but my biggest objection is the scene between Spock and the woman, because I really did not believe it, and I did not believe that the Romulan did not suspect Spock of something underhanded. She does know enough about Vulcans to know that something is afoot, which I don't entirely agree with, but I think, Tobi, you were saying you kind of do. So, yeah. Okay.
And about the size of the Romulan cloak, we all know the prototypes are always bigger. So let's just say that this one was the prototype, and we'll go.
I would assume it would have to be big. I mean, it's cloaking the entire ship. I would assume it's going to have to be massive. I think I'd find it more unbelievable if it was just like, here's this little chip that I'm going to carry away, this microchip, and cloaks the entire ship, whatever. I like things like that, I know it's cheesy, but the kind of 60s idea that everything was big and bulky and, fashionable.
So why does it mean that just because it's a little bigger that you can't hide it?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, just put a lampshade on it. What's up?
That'd be great if Kirk just dressed it in Romulan clothes or something and started walking around like, this is just my friend here. Sorry, Steve, you were saying.
I was going to say, a lot of things where you have technology, it's always something like a chip or something that actually makes it all work. That's the groundbreaking thing. The rest's all just stuff that feeds information into it.
Yeah, I guess. But like I said, back in the day, we all thought technology was going to have to be massive things. I mean, look at any time the original series was like, this is a supercomputer, and it's the size of 3 rooms. And nowadays we have the same computing power in our pocket.
Yeah, but computers were that big then, so
Exactly. Yeah, that's my point. They probably thought every device that has to do something is going to have to be massive. Maybe they just hadn't made it to Space Japan yet. As soon as they got their hands on it, they were going to miniaturize it.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it's the idea of that technology. But I think that's one of the great things about Star Trek, though. They start with such a simple, random thing like a pad that Geordi looks at, and now those things are everywhere.
That is one of the funnier things, though, is that they predicted iPads or tablets, whatever you want to call them, by having the pad, as they call it in Next Generation. Yeah. But you have full scenes where Picard's like, I need to work on this problem. So he's got 17 pads laid out. And it's just like, oh, you sweet summer children. We do this all on one thing. It's got enough. We don't need 17 iPads just because we have
just want to have multiple tabs. You want to have all the information directly at hand without having to close and see them side by side. And yes,
that's just excessive.
He's the captain.
Well, I'll carry on with the other sort of critical response on the audience then. In 2014, Gizmodo ranked the Enterprise incident as the 48th best episode of Star Trek out of the over 700 that were made by that time, including the spin-off shows. In 2016, the Hollywood Reporter rated the Enterprise incident the 33rd best television episode of all Star Trek franchise TV prior to Star Trek Discovery, including live action and animated series, but not counting the movies. They note that this episode is the favorite of the director of 2016's film Star Trek Beyond, Justin Lin. Good taste. In 2017, Comic Book Resources ranked Spock and the Romulan Commander the 11th best romantic relationship of the Star Trek franchise up to that time. Tobi was picketing outside, saying that they were 10 places too low. In 2017, Comic Book Resources ranked the Romulan Commander the 7th fiercest female character in the Trek universe. In 2020, Sci-Fi recommended watching this episode for background on Romulans for Sci-Fi Picard, and in the same year, Screen ranked it as the 4th best episode of the original series to rewatch. So yeah, over to the sort of very small amount of information that I got from our viewers and listeners. From Star Trek shitposting over on Facebook, William Cheshire just says, Scotty was the true hero. He got the bloody thing to work. Paul E. Jewell simply says 5 out of 5. William Decker on Strange New Worlds, what a name, says Spock had relations with the Romulan Commander, then she defected to Enterprise. The baby was female and named Savick, to which I replied, that makes the kind of sex scenes in Star Trek 3 very awkward. So I don't think I quite believe that headcanon. Christine Wood also gives it 5 stars, as does Linda Carraher. And Michelle Perry Brooker on my personal page just says, it's certainly not a favorite episode, but I'd seen Joanne Linville in other TV series at the time and thought her performance was excellent, as always. The plot was imaginative enough, and it gave the cast a chance to do something a bit different, with Kirk going wacko and Spock having his, by Vulcan standards, fling. On a different note, it was amazing to see Amy Rydell, the daughter of Joanne Linville, playing her mother's role in Star Trek Continues. The resemblance is scary. Yeah, I'm glad actually that I had that saved, because I will say, although I don't get on with all of the people involved in the making of Star Trek Continues, it's very good in terms of imitating the kind of look and everything of the original series. And I remember catching that episode where, Joanne Linville's daughter plays the same character, and it really is spooky. She looks identical. It's so weird. So if you get a chance, maybe check that one out and give it a look. Right. So with that out of the way, then it just remains for us to give our favorite character moment line, and then we'll move on from there. So let's see, who should we go to first? I'm going to go to you, Tobi, so that you can answer without any bias. Who was your favorite character in this and why?
My favorite character, it's going to be the what did you say? Number 7 fiercest lady in Star Trek.
Number 4, I believe. I could be wrong.
Number 4.
Hang on, let me see. 7th, my bad. You were right. I was wrong.
The Romulan Commander. Yeah.
Cool. I find it shocking, by the way, that she still doesn't have a name. In canon, she gets like a couple of different names in spin-off things that are unofficial, but we only know her as the Romulan Commander. Cool.
They apparently never exchanged names.
Yeah, they did, but she whispered it to him, and he was like, "That name sounds beautiful, but not spoken by a soldier." But we don't get to hear it.
Funny little side note. I was watching this episode. My husband's getting ready to leave and go run errands, and just that scene is on where she's whispering her name, and he saw that little transaction. And my husband, we've been married 20 years. He said something so sexually hilarious, like what she was saying her name was. And I'm shaking my head going, David, don't ruin this for me. I have to talk about it seriously in a minute. But that's just the nature of, funny things that happen here around Star Trek. Yeah. Nope.
Fair enough. We'll save that maybe
for
save that for the Patreon.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah, I would know. I'm a super prude about talking about that kind of stuff, so I just shook my head pretending that I didn't hear it, but of course I did.
Now that you've put that in my head, though, it would have been so funny, and part of the reason we didn't hear it is because Spock had to kind of sell the idea of it's beautiful but change or whatever, and it'd be so funny if she whispered in and she was just like, "My name's Gertrude."
Gertrude.
Oh, beautiful name. Anyway, what about you, Adrienne? Who was your favorite character and why?
I'm with Tobi for the same reason. Joanne Linville just was incredible, totally memorable. All you have to do is see her image somewhere, and you know exactly what the episode was, and you'll never forget.
Fair enough. Cool. Steve, what about you?
And we go Scotty, because it's Scotty. He gets everything done, everything fixed. And then, this puts two Romulan, attack commandos who transported on the ship with their weapons into the brig by himself. And then he's really happy for taking the uniforms off later.
Awesome. I actually went with Spock because everyone who knows me knows I love the character of Spock, and I think he was written well by old Dorothy Catherine Fontana and played to perfection as always by Nimoy. So Spock was the kind of character I was gravitating to. Although I should have considered Joanne Linville a bit longer because fantastic. So that would probably be a close second. Right. What was the favorite moment or scene in the episode then, Tobi?
Oh, scene. Let me think a minute.
Shall I move to someone else? Adrienne, what about you? What was your favorite moment or scene in the episode?
Well, you sort of already touched on it because you mentioned when Scotty comes into medical, they calm down and he sees that Kirk is alive. And that really is a whole transition for all of us because of what Scotty says, which is my favorite line, which we haven't come to yet. So there.
We'll come to that later. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. So what about you, Steve?
I had initially thought about the bit where Scotty comes into Edby and sees Kirk there, but I've actually gone with the lift scene at the end because you've got all that stuff that goes on back and forth, and it just shows actually maybe there was that moment of temptation there.
Oh, I should have picked that, but okay, fair enough. I just went with the initial scene between the Spock and the Commander when you're first getting that kind of repartee between them, and you can sense the kind of sexual tension for the first initial idea, and you're like, oh, okay, something's going on there. That was the scene I went with. You thought of something yet, then, Tobi?
Yes, not influenced by. It was already mentioned, but not influenced by that because I thought of that after Adrienne answered, and also go with the scene at the end. Because I was skipping through the episode, was like, which moment? I'm like, oh yeah, the end scene. Yeah. No,
that was Steve that said that, the end scene in the lift.
And that's why I said it was not influenced by that. I thought of this after Adrienne.
I'll change mine the part where that Kirk gets killed because Kirk gets killed.
Oh no, a Vulcan death grip. Yeah, fair enough. So finally, then, what was your favorite line, if you have one, Tobi? Do I dare come to you first?
Yeah, I can't quote lines because I'm forgettable like that. I actually thought this line was hilarious, and I think you earlier pandered this line saying it was shit, but I thought it was so hilarious. When Spock said like something like this should stimulate our conversations. I thought it was so funny.
Do you find this dress more appropriate? Oh yes, I think it would actually stimulate our conversation.
But you know what? To be honest, I joke about this episode a lot. I love that dress.
Oh yeah.
I would wear that dress. I would if I could. I would wear that dress. It is beautiful for today.
Yeah. I was reading that it's there's a book somewhere of like the best uniforms and costumes they make for the original series, and the Romulan Commander's uniform and casual dress are like together in that book as like some of the best work that William Ware Tice did, and I was like, I can understand that.
I love that top and black. It's classic. It's beautiful, and I'd wear it.
Fair enough. Cool. So yeah, that was a heck of a quote to pick. What about you, Adrienne? What would you go with?
Well, there's a very poignant line, which Spock says, it's not my favorite line, but I'm throwing it in as an honorable mention because I like to do that. But he says, I was not aware of that aspect of Romulan society. Like, I really like that line because of her expression back in him. Like, she barely, she's like, oh, he wants to chat. He wants to talk. He's interested in me and blah, 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 whatever. And then, but what you had said before, what Scotty says, well, you look like the devil himself, but as long as you're alive, what's it all about? Like, I really like that because then we know we're all going to find out what the heck's going on. And I love that it was Scotty that said it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've ended up with 3 because I had a favorite line.
Of course.
And then now I've realized I didn't mention one earlier on during the writing that I had written down. So I'll mention that in a minute. But first, what about you, Steve? What was your favorite line?
I'll kill you.
You bastard!
Of course. Yeah, eat Shatner, man.
Do you hear that? Do you hear what human integrity sounds like? You traitor! How dare you? Only you.
And did you notice how they messed up his hair and everything? I was like,
Yeah, Steve
oh,
was just
really?
saying that's the clear side of madness, not
Yeah,
combing your
that's
hair.
true. Right.
Fair enough. Well, I'll give you my things then. The first thing, I forgot to mention this during the writing of the episode, but I really loved the exchange, just the cheeky exchange between Spock and the Romulan Commander, where she goes, "You're being deceitful. It's unworthy of a Vulcan." And he responds with, "You're being clever. That's unworthy of a Romulan." Which I was like, meow. Vic Reeves handbag gif.
Yeah, like Commander Sela would have just stormed off and stomped her boots on the way out.
And the ones that I actually had written down, my runner-up would definitely be, who are you that you could do this? First officer of the Enterprise. And then the fact that she immediately slaps him in response to this quite noble answer. But the actual one I would go with is from the end, and it is military secrets are the most fleeting of all. I hope you and I have exchanged something more permanent. Because that's basically his way of being like, I actually did care. So, yeah, I like that. Right, so... well, you never know. You never know. I should say, by the way, because I forgot to mention this earlier as well, that there is a sequel to this story called The Enterprise Experiment, which was co-written by DC Fontana and was made as a graphic novel called Star Trek Year 4 Enterprise Experiment, which I'm about halfway through reading because I realized I have it. It was one of the many things that I've bought over the years and didn't realize I have. And then when I read about it in this, I was like, oh, hang on. I own this. So I can't tell you how good it is or not yet because I haven't reached the end. But so far, pretty
tell
interesting.
us. I want to know. I totally want to know what happens.
It has all of the same characters. So it just goes into, how the Romulan Commander gets sort of taken back to the people and the end to accept the Enterprise. And they try a cloak that actually starts to phase them and stuff. And interesting so far.
Yeah, love to know how it ends.
Fair enough. Look it up if you ever are interested in buying the book. I don't think it's that expensive. So before we get to our conclusion and score, then I do owe you guys a haiku, which I have remembered. Unfortunately for you, or maybe you like it. I don't know. So just quickly, then my haiku. Of course, if you're not familiar, haiku is a poetry form where you basically try to sound deep in 5 syllables, then 7, then 5. And my descriptive haiku for this episode was: Spock, you sly old dog, fury of a woman scorned. Kirk, grab your cloak fast. So there we go. That was the limericks and haiku dealt with. So as I said, just remains for us to give our conclusion, our score out of 5 Starfleet Deltas, as we always do. Oh, let's see who should go first. Tobi, go on. I'll let you.
To summarize everything I have said in this episode, I love Spock and to name this Romulan Commander's relationship yet to be named.
I told you.
I love the relationship. I love the way it's acted and also written. The plot otherwise is a little bit convenient at times. I don't think it goes overboard to being completely silly, but it really pushes the line of, I don't know about that. So, as an overall score, out of 5? Yes. No?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Out of 5. I always go out of 10, so I always...
Well, just half whatever you would give it out of 10.
Yeah. So, out of 5 is 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Cool. That's pretty good. That's a very good score. So, Adrienne, I'll come to you next conclusion and score out of 5, please.
All right. I'm giving it a 4. Joanne Linville, her acting, and the fact that Dorothy Catherine was part of the writing team. Like I like it, compared to so many others I've seen. It would be up there at the top of the ones. If I had to rewatch all of them in no random order, it would be up towards the top, not the bottom.
Cool. Fair enough. And you obviously went with 4 stars. Steve, what about you then? What was your conclusion and score?
I was going to go 4, but I think I'm going to go 3.5 just to be that way inclined. Just because I think, really, as I said at the start, it is a much different pace to how we're used to it. I think I'm a bit more ingrained in that there's something happening. I just seeing 2 characters chatting, having their drinks of various concoctions and colours and everything else for a bit of dramatic music. isn't quite up to speed now. It's a bit slower than you see, so I'm going to just knock
Okay.
that half a point off for that. Good episode,
Alright.
though. Enjoyed it. Certainly one of the ones I remember from the original series as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair enough. I'll give you my conclusion and score then. I just said I've always liked this episode. The spy subterfuge is clever and compelling. It was good to see more of the Romulans in only their second appearance after the exceptional balance of terror. And it has perhaps the most memorable guest star performance in the original series, or second best after Joan Collins anyway. It may not be the greatest episode of the show, but coming as it does in the mostly weak third season and right after the certified worst episode ever, Spock's brain, it looks like Shakespeare. Shatner is good with the spy acting playing to his somewhat overacting strengths, and Nimoy is outstanding as usual. If I'm thinking of complaints, I think the other crew are far too superfluous, and it's a bit hard to swallow that nobody reacts more to Kirk's supposedly crazy orders. Similarly, the scenes that try to sell the severity of the situation, i.e. the ship might, get captured and you blow yourselves all up, they sit a little uneasy with the lighter, soapy, melodramatic tone. But I still think it's a great episode overall, and definitely one I've revisited many times and always enjoy. So no need for me to cloak this score. I actually did give it 4 out of 5, which irritates me no end, Steve, because if you'd went with 4, it would have been so easy to do.
4! 4! Everyone else a 4.
But no, I will add the 4 scores together and divide it by the 4 of us here to give us our final score, which gives a final score for the Enterprise incident of 3.875 out of 5.
No,
so...
I went back to 4 because of our legs and the miniskirt.
Oh, jeez.
Are you really going back to 4?
Damn right.
I like this guy.
You know what? I'm gonna just take it because it makes my life so much easier. That gives a final score of 4 out of 5 for the Enterprise incident.
Yay.
So easy. I can't believe all 4 of us gave 4s. Shh, I'll edit it. I probably can't, but anyway. So yeah, that wraps up another episode of Hit or Miss Star Trek and another series. The Romulan themed series is over. We are going to be back later in the year with another little miniature series, which I can reveal now is going to be episodes that are not particularly well regarded, shall we say. But it's hopefully at least going to be an interesting listen as we look at episodes like Genesis, Tuvix, Threshold, Sub Rosa.
Yay! Yay! I can't wait to talk
God.
about those ones. I can't wait.
I can't wait to watch those in preparation.
It's gonna be cool to have to watch those again. It's hilarious. Toby, these
So
are
yes,
ones
Steve-
that the fandom, when you say the name Threshold, everybody just runs away because it's such a bad episode. But I mean,
Don't you dare add that.
and Lower Decks has done some funny things with the Threshold stuff. So good to go.
Oh, Threshold's on the list of the ones we're watching. Don't worry.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying these are all episodes that the fans just sprint away from.
Absolutely. But yeah, hopefully they'll make interesting chat and interesting debate. Certainly, I expect Tuvix is going to get complicated.
It will.
Sub Rosa is one of those that went through a weird kind of reinvention as people just realize they love it for the kitsch value, I think,
Of
the
course.
comedy value of Dr. Crusher's sex scandal.
Are we doing masks?
No, that's not on the
Okay.
list, unfortunately. Not yet,
Okay,
anyway.
Okay.
No. I think I named
Oh.
basically everything we're doing except maybe DK and I are going to do Move Along Home from DS9.
Yeah, that's a
'cause
good
we
one.
both kind of weirdly love that. And then we might do
know.
Star Trek 5 later in
I
the year.
said move along home. I did say that today.
Okay, cool.
Did you hear it?
No, I didn't, but that
I
makes
did
sense.
say
Fair enough. So yeah, look forward to all of that, but that's a little bit later in the year. Before that, we're back next month for our newest episode, which will be a top 10 Star Trek Discovery episodes special. And it's myself and I believe Jordan LaForden and Mary, who's been on a few times as well. So yeah, look forward to that in about a month's time. In the meantime, we're going to be doing loads over on our sister podcast, Silver Screen Podcast. If you like movies at all, highly recommend you going over there and subscribing and following that, because oh boy, we're churning them out. We're fast approaching episode 100, and there'll be all kinds of treats there for you. They're bound to find something that you like if you do sub over there as well. And yeah, just remains for me to say thank you to my guests for joining me for this last Romulan episode. And yeah, thank you, Adrienne. Where can people find you on the internet, if anywhere?
I am off the internet right now, but if you want to read old stuff, it's on X. It's AL Park-Tucker 2.
Cool. Steve, are you still hiding from the world?
But I'm still cloaked as per the start of the episode. So yeah, I'm just around. Probably best going to your Facebook than finding me.
Well, also your Discord though. I'm a lot
Oh,
on
yes.
Discord, like topic related Discord, depending on books and series I like.
Yeah, it's easier to cultivate the people that are and aren't allowed to be in there as well on Discord. So,
Exactly.
yeah, we've made a nice little group of people, I think. So, yeah. So, what about you, Toby? Did you want to shout out any of your social medias?
I mean, I am on Blue Sky, Dark Sonic, but only talk about anime and manga, so I don't know what the Venn diagram here is, but
You'd be
If there's
surprised. I
like
think
one.
it's considered a nerdy thing, so there's probably at least some people that.
you can find me there just reviewing stuff for myself mostly.
Why not? Well, if anyone wants to join in your reviewing of manga and anime over there at Blue Sky, Dark Sonic, and yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, there'll be a graphic on screen right now when I edit it in, showing you all the places you can find us on the internet. Usually myself or the podcast, or if you want to reach DK, you can do it via those means as well, and I'll try and make sure he gets the message or it gets to him. And yeah. But if you don't have visuals in front of you, if you're listening on one of our various platforms, you will always find the link tree in the episode description, which will also direct you to all the places. We're on most social medias. We're on Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Mastodon, pretty much everything, Twitter, X, whatever it's called this week. We're there. So look around if you want to find us. And feel free to interact, like, share, subscribe, same as always. Like I said, enjoy the back catalogue of episodes while you're waiting. And we'll be back next month with Top 10 Discovery. So in the meantime, just remember, we are Starfleet. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
You have been listening to the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast, hosted by Michael Wilson and DK. Produced and edited by Mike Wilson. Additional material by DK. Please remember to like this episode and spread it throughout subspace. Subscribe to the Hit or Miss YouTube channel and follow us online. Links to all of our social media pages can be found via the link tree listed in the episode's description. For any queries or to apply to be a guest on the show, you can also email homstartrek@gmail.com. This podcast is part of the Mike's Podcasts Network. You can listen to this and our sister podcasts on all good podcast providers by searching for Mike's Podcasts. Hit or Miss Podcast was based on an idea by Michael Wilson and Will Templer. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll be back, but for now, hailing frequencies closed.
Gotta warp out of here at once, maximum speed.